Fortunately, we're joined now by a meteorologist, Peter Barnes, who's with us in the studio, political strategist and all-round good guy. By the way, I should add, Peter, America are not involved in these goals for net zero.
No.
China are actually, if you look at the wording of China, although they're ahead of the game in what they do, they are looking at carbon neutral, which is a slightly different thing.
Yes, definitely. By the way, you fix your net zero problem by fixing your China problem. The reason we have this obsession with it is it's because it's been infected into our system by the Chinese. Our entire economy is built around the green economy, which is all funded through China and Chinese money. So what has happened is they've taken control of the academy. So they've got their kind of what they call the Confucius Institutes, these kind of benign organisations that are supposed to make
Confucius Institute. It sounds so worthy.
Oh, it does really, doesn't it? But it's they kind of normalise Beijing's narrative of net zero is really important. And they control the grants for funding for academics, so they push it in one direction. What has happened is that has then gone into the corporate world, the legal world, the political world, everything, and it's all geared everything to one thing: that China makes the money. We suffer, China makes the money. This is a long-term plan that's been in place for about 20, 30 years. So
really?
If not longer, some people argue it's been going since the Cultural Revolution, this idea of controlling kind of stealth by takeover, and takeover by stealth, sorry. And I think this is what's really important when we talk about net zero, is that, like you said, things they seem to be getting better, but we're told they're getting worse. That's not an accident.
That's the bit.
That's the bit that doesn't make sense. And the reason that the kind of the most fervent people get they're catastrophizing is because they have to lurch to the extremes to justify the fact that things are getting better, but we're told that they're worse. So this is the point. Otherwise, why I hate the catastrophizing argument, because it shows that these people are what the Soviet Union called useful idiots. They've been pumped with this ideology, this idea, and it's not by accident. It's been done deliberately, so that their narrative is continually repeated in the media, or more importantly, it's done in television shows, it's done in films, it's done in movies, things where mass media that everybody consumes. So we are consistently told you've got to do everything for the environment. Nobody is denying climate change and all this stuff, but it is the crisis bit of it, with the urgency, the way that we've got to do everything, no matter what the cost. That's not the accident. That is the manipulation of the science. That's manipulation of the kind of narratives, and we see it all the time. But it's not just China that do it when it comes to net zero. Say, for example, Iran have been doing it when it's come to the Israel-Gaza stuff. You want to know who's funding the hate marches here in London? I'll give you money. It starts with an I and it ends in an N. It's called Iran. Foreign involvement and influence in our system is rife, and we are seeing that this week through the China trial and everything
else. I love
else.
This analysis.
This is the thing. It's not mine. This has been a long-term theory, and it's starting to kind of show a lot of truth to it. At first, it was considered a bit of a conspiracy because, most people aren't that competent, and then you realise, oh no, it's the Chinese government. Of course they could be that competent because they are that competent.
And the thing I really resent is at about 6:45 in the morning today, when I should be munching on my Kellogg's, I'm down a rabbit hole looking up CO2 emissions across the planet over the last 20, 30 years. I'm trying to read chemical symbols that I've never seen in my life when I'm looking at this stuff. And hence the reason why I looked at those figures, that we've improved by about a third in less than 20 years. Unrecognisable. And that's the direction of travel. And simultaneously, Ed Miliband, another stand-up, saying it's getting so much worse. It's worth having a little listen to Donald Trump here, because we remember what he said about climate change. He wasn't messing around. This is just a few weeks ago now. Trump on the green issue.
Climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong.
Yeah, that's a big one, actually. The fact that all these predictions. I mean, when I was at school, I was told that the Maldives wouldn't exist by now, and yet it's still there. This is the point, is that all these major predictions, they've yet to kind of really come to fruition. Obviously, we've seen changing weather, so that's climate change. It is the crisis aspect that we really have to deal with the political nature of it, and it is used as a political football. Because the narrative of, what about your kids? How do you not want to save the planet? Is very difficult to argue against. Again, not an accident. It is like the kind of the ultimate. You don't want to protect the world for your children. How awful of you! And
well, because it is the ultimate, and it's also the ultimate sort of socialist stroke Marxist argument, isn't it? Because of course, if you come from that part of the political spectrum, you need an enemy, and what greater enemy than the end of the planet? I mean, the end of the planet, the self-flagellation involved.
Oh, that is a big factor that is actually done through left-wing agendas. Is because you have what's known as the perpetual outrage. So if you notice, it's the same people that are concerned about Gaza, are concerned about net zero, that are concerned about this. It's the same people. And what you do is one of the bases of totalitarianism. Actually, is you keep the idea of a perpetual revolution. There's always something next. There's always something to protest about. And net zero is just the latest one. Well, there will be something next.
I mean, that is 1984. There's always a war going on.
Always a war. There's always a war.
And with this, I mentioned in the intro there, Peter, that this idea that somebody had said to me, actually, when I put that forward, why are we, we're doing amazing things. The planet is cleaner. Everybody supports that. That's great. And if there are alternative ways of doing things that are better, and ultimately, if they're cheaper, we all tick that box and we love it. So why are we told it's getting worse when it's demonstrably getting better? And then this argument comes through, because all the CO2s from years ago, industrial revolution times, it was all up there, stuck and trapped into, I don't know where, but in a cloud somewhere. And now it's all
cloud
bursting open onto us. Well, if that is the case, then surely that's beyond our capability to control.
Welcome to the concept of original sin. The one thing you can't get away from. The religious aspect of it is there. You see it in the slavery argument with reparations. You've got to pay for the sins of your father. And that's the narrative yet again, with the same people pushing the same kind of argument.
But if we've got 12 trillion tons of CO2 or whatever it is washing around the place and making the planet hot, I don't think there's anything we can do about that now, is there, other than sort of cover the entire planet in a big umbrella?
Well, we tried that, didn't we? We wanted to block out the sky and the sun or something not so long ago with this seeding and all the rest of it. But again, it's ramped up and catastrophized. And like what they do is, when you look at all the environmental reports put out by COP and all the rest of it, the worst one is just one of 6 or 7 models. What they do is they pick the very worst one and they make, well, this is going to happen.
And the worst scenario within that worst one.
What has happened each time is actually the one where technology and investment sensibly has led to the least problematic outcome. And that's what actually happens. But they need to keep this narrative going, so they automatically launch to the worst case scenario.
And I can remember being at school when the issue of climate came up, not climate change or environment, just general climate. And the talk was, I remember the teacher saying, years ago in the southern England, there were big vineyards because it was so much hotter back then. And there'll be a time when it'll become hotter again. But nobody at that stage in school was talking about it being a human issue or an environment. There was no cause about it. It was a meteorological argument. That's what the planet does. Does anyone seriously think that if humans never existed on this planet, that the climate would be static for 10 million years?
I've got to say, it's this idea of climate change. Well, yes, the climate changes. That's why we don't call it that anymore. We call it weather. Yes, we used to call it global warming, and then everyone noticed that actually we don't mind warmer weather. So this is the thing. The language changes, the concepts change, but the principle is always the same. Is that actually it is used to bring in control through state governments using a left-wing agenda.
Let's move to this story, Peter. China accessed UK classified secrets for years via a Chinese-owned data hub with vast amounts of sensitive material reportedly compromised. The government has tightened security of foreign deals after warnings over the Chinese espionage risks. Conservative MP Tom Tugendhat spoke this morning on this very issue. Here he is.
My home has been broken into, my files have been ransacked, somebody has been put in my office by a hostile state, and 2 parties are playing politics with it. This is national security of the United Kingdom, and yet here we have 2 individuals seeking to extract information from us. And the government's response is not, as mine was, do everything you can to make sure the prosecution works, but no, process. Well, who the hell's side are you on? This isn't about the bureaucracy, this is about leadership. We're not sent here to be civil servants, we're sent here to lead the country and to make decisions.
Great last line there. We're not sent here to be civil servants, which is, I think, how governments tend to run these days, That was Tom Tugendhat in fine form. I mean, what are we making of this? It's easy to lose track of, what this is really about. I think a lot of people sort of gloss over a little bit.
The way I'd look at this, I've dealt with, unfortunately, I had to deal with China in private companies and all the rest of it. But if the migrant crisis is a paper cut, China is an open heart surgery. It will make everything else we've talked about in the last 10 years irrelevant. Their infection into our finances, into our economy, into the defense sector, into the data hubs, into everything is out of control and probably past the point of being able to turn it back.
Wow.
China, if it chose to, can give this country what we call an economic heart attack because they control the access routes in and out. They control the trade routes of the supply chain. We've allowed that to happen. So they might not have taken over a giant company, but what they did is they took over the little companies that feed into the giant one. So if they suddenly say, oh no, Britain can't build that, they'll watch the supply chain break down. More importantly, they control the ports, so that's the arteries. If they clog up the arteries, we get a heart attack.
Yeah.
The damage they can inflict with one
They control the ports because they own the ports.
Yes, they own everything. Or they have part deals with them.
Yeah.
They're in Hinkley Point. They're in Sizewell C. They're in everything. Absolutely everything. I cannot stress just how important, and I'm so glad, in a way, that this has actually happened. The trial is rather an irrelevancy. It's a bit of political theatre. The issue, no matter what happens now, has not gone away. We have to deal with China. It is not an ally. It is not a friendly nation. It attacks us every single day. And, we have to be resilient beyond a reproach. However, because of the state of the economy, we can't fight back. We can't do anything because we are basically indebted to China because, we import double what we export to them. We got 100 billion in trade with them. It's out of control, and it has been for a very, very long time. And, Tom Chickenhat, I'm a Tory, but he is as well to a degree, but he is bang on this, and he's been banging on about this issue for a long time. The Labour Party slowed down the introduction of the foreign influence and registration schemes and all this stuff. They played politics with something beyond reproach, and it is absolutely astonishing to me what came out of number 10 over this issue. They played it the worst you could ever do.
Absolutely right, and it ain't over yet, by the way. And in the last 10-15 minutes, Sir Ken McCullum, the head of MI5, has said that China presents daily threats to UK security. Now, I think when he speaks, we had the former head, Sir Richard Dearlove of MI6 on earlier in the week. He made a similar point. He said that there wasn't an hour that would pass and there wasn't a file marked China on his desk.
So we now have the National Security and Infrastructure Act and the National Security Act, which is the update to the official security, because of China. Because of, if you remember, I think it was her name, Christine, she was a lawyer and she got caught up in all of this. The MI5 intervened and issued what they call an influence alert in Parliament saying there is Chinese spying going on in a Parliament. It was that serious. The Speaker of the House got up and declared it. That hasn't happened for decades. And it just got swept away. Successive governments, political parties need to actually take a lot of accountability for the failure on this, but put everything to one side and fix this and fix it now.
Indeed. Our lines are open on all of this, whether it's China or that question of our obsession with net zero. Why are you not buying into the green argument? 0344 499 1000.